Welcome to the Scent of Beauty. This video is titled Affirmation, Friend or Host, Part 3. This has been one of the most rewarding videos series that I've made. And in this video, I want to talk about the aggregate method that we use, different combination to help bring us over these humps that we encounter. We started off in childhood. I talked about the apple for the teacher and the symbolic gestures that we use as a means to ingratiate ourselves. Obsequious means and method that we use through obedience and being attentive to others because we just simply want to be affirmed. This happens when we have lost total faith and hope in our being. I want to talk about the algae and the coral reef and the sloth. The algae will help us to gain some insight in the world of being hosted, symbiosis relationships. So algae are a part of what is called the planktonic species. They're tiny, they're microscopic, and I mentioned it in the other videos. But these tiny beings need a home, and the coral and the sloth offer them a home. The algae cannot swim against the current or the tide, so it drifts in the water, in the ocean. And that's why it reminded me of when we can't get past the wrongs or the mistakes that we've made, we kind of skirt it and we can't get beyond those blocks. So we kind of start drifting, and that's why we seek out a host to house us, like the algae. But the algae, it pays for the place that it resides, which is in the tissues of the coral. It resides there. But it does pay. It provides food and oxygen. It removes waste. So it's a mutual relationship. However, when the water temperature gets hot or warm, the coral ejects the algae and it's booted out into the ocean. The coral doesn't remember, oh, the algae gave me this beautiful, vibrant color. It doesn't remember that the photosynthesis was all based on the algae. It doesn't remember any of that. It's just when the mood is right and when it feels like it, it just ejects the algae. And how often, that's why it's so dangerous. And I wanted to use this symbiotic relationship, because when we don't have the faith and the hope in ourselves and we drift and into other people's lives, they have the ability to omit us at will. And one of the things that I found fascinating about this relationship, the coral, and you could pause the video and look at the coral reef, the beautiful, magnificent colors. They get that from the algae. And what the algae cannot do for itself, it does in the coral reef. It brings it literally to life. The colors are so beautiful. It just continually adds. So although it's a mutual relationship, the coral provides the protection that is needed. It seems like the algae adds more to the relationship, but has the least to say. And it's very interesting to watch. Actually, it's kind of heartbreaking because the algae, when it's so discourteously ousted from the coral, the transformation of the coral, it's heartbreaking. It goes into what is called the coral bleaching. It's just completely without color, just completely white, and it actually dies without the aid of the algae. When we lose our faith and our hope in ourselves, we start to coil, we start to curl up, we start to become microscopic in our faith and in our, actually it's in our belief system, the belief that we start to have about ourselves. Just the mere thought of working through, our problems or dealing with challenges, we start to retreat like the algae starts to move against instead of going ahead, not gaining momentum. And the algae also finds itself growing and developing and becoming one with the slowest animal on this earth, the sloth. It grows in the sloth. You start to see the algae coming out and growing with the fur of the sloth. You see the green pigment of the algae coming through. But if you look at the sloth, it also houses so many other species, parasites, flies, and the sloth is not bothered, but the algae is in there. And so often when we look for a host, what else is the host hosting? This affirmation that we seek in others, there is just a price that is, that we could examine. What is the price that we're paying? You see, the algae, this is the life, this is the nature. But by nurturing and, the self-doubt, nurturing the belief that keeps an individual insignificant, we just become so ingrained in others. And what infests the host is also infests the one being housed. See, the algae helps the sloth to hide out in the trees because the sloth like to climb all the way up in the tree and hang out up there. And so it helps it to blend in. And all of these gifts that the algae gives, how much is it getting back? And so often, the apple for the teacher, these symbolic gestures that aids others, and we look, for affirmation in return. What about utilizing? We have the choice to stop and take a look at ourselves and start to incorporate our gifts in our own being. The algae doesn't have that choice. I started off talking about effervescence. We talk about it in an alka-seltzer form. But there's also, we can expand the definition. Yes, it's used to help to quiet the acidic reaction in the second brain that causes pain. That's the stomach, the abdomen. And I began by mentioning the excessive mental anguish with thoughts that are just pouring out and building up, that same acidic beliefs. But we can learn from the algae because of its photosynthesis practice. It uses the light's energy and it stores it, and it produced the chemical energy that is used to grow and produce oxygen. But because we have made room for mistakes and errors and lapse in judgment, we've made room for that. But we have the faith that we could progress. We're not going and skirting any longer. We could move beyond the currents and tides that come in each human being's life. We have the faith now, because we've learned that faith and hope in the other videos, that we need internally. That's the affirmation that is missing, that faith is the allegiance to the duty of oneself, the loyalty to myself, to yourself, to ourselves. And hope is the optimistic state of mind, and we could have that because we are deserving of that. So with faith and hope, the effervescence starts to get moved within our being. We don't look for hosts. We become our own internal friend. And once that starts to happen, we are vivacious, we're lively, we're spirited, we are enthusiastic, we have sunny disposition, we're bright, we're energetic, and we are full with beams, and we're dynamic. And that is the truth. And so once we get to know that faith and hope is essential, and we incorporate that, again, we are a friend internally, and then we, in affirmation, that question, friend or host, we become a friend, and we have a mutual friendships with others. We stop looking for hosts. We no longer need to offer symbolic gestures like the student to the teacher that offered the apple to pass because he didn't know how to advance. He had lost his hope and faith within himself. But today, we have our scent of beauty. And in our scent of beauty, A for effort. Giving up is not an option. And the mistakes have a gold star because it is an indication that we are filled with effervescence. We are not microscopic. We are actual size. We don't have to hide in a host. We simply have to practice faith and hope within our being. Thank you for listening, and welcome to the Scent of Beauty.